Hello, friends. I'm Prathamesh Kalamkar, and I'm a lead data scientist at ThoughtWorks. In this session, we want to talk about a very exciting topic of how to use artificial intelligence to build legal AI applications which focus on Indian legal context. So let's start. OpenAI is a combination of actually three words. The first is open, which comes from more like open source world. Then there is Nyaya, which means justice in Hindi or in Sanskrit. And there's the last thing is AI, which stands for artificial intelligence. So all of this mission is really aimed at like how do we collect open data, make it open, and also using that data build AI applications that can help Indian judicial system. So that's really the mission of OpenAI. And ThoughtWorks is a technology and a vision partner in OpenAI. We're working with other NGOs like Ekstep, Agami, Rohini, Nilekani Philanthropies in this. And also we are working with NLS Bangalore as legal experts on this. So let's let's go a little deeper into this. Like, why do we want to use AI for justice? So the idea really is to use AI solutions to augment human capabilities so that the justice system becomes more efficient. And why there is a need to make the justice system more efficient. So currently, there are 4.5 crore cases that are pending in courts, Indian courts. Okay, and if none of new case arise, and if you protrude that, like if you want to go ahead in the future, and if no new case comes into the system, it will take at least 360 years to come over this backlog, right? So that's a huge backlog currently that Indian courts have. So the courts are strained and they're stressed out, right? So there is definite need in terms of reducing the load on the court, right? But also on the other hand, a normal person also need a better access to justice. And like a to give you an example, like if I have a case in a subordinate court, that's a district and sessions court, average resolution time is 6 years to get justice. If it moves to higher court, it's another 3 years. And if it goes to Supreme Court, then the total time it spends in the courts is whopping 13 years. So, like as a layman, there is a need that how I get faster justice, as we all say, justice delayed, justice denied. So, how do I get faster justice, right? That's also an important thing. So AI can really help all the stakeholders in judicial system. May it be the courts, may it be the lawyers, may it be the laymen, right? So from the court perspective, it can really help in a better like listing of the cases, assisting judges in terms of writing judgments, right? And there is also new thing that is coming up, which is gaining a lot of importance even in mainstream cases, is the online dispute resolution. And it's really an area where applications of AI are becoming very much significant. So like things like automated claim settlement. So online dispute resolution is like you don't go to courts, but you go to an alternative addressal mechanisms. So you choose like who can do this process of arbitration, and then you go into that to get um, to come to a solution that both parties are agreed on, which and can have a slight flexibility in terms of what rules are applicable. So there are huge kind of applications, especially in case of online dispute resolution. Also, on the other side, layman doesn't understand language of legal language. It's just very complex and very esoteric. So, if I explain something, if I have a chatbot who can tell in plain language that this is what has happened to me, can you give me some advice about where should I go, what should I do? Then that will be something which will enable faster access to justice, and also it will be more affordable rather than going to the lawyer and then doing those back and forths. Again, not only just this, but also people who are doing legal research, right? They spend a lot of time in doing like searching through the past judgments. That's what are called as precedents. Also, like looking at the right facts, getting the right information from all the evidences and all the documents from the case. I think that thing also can be made more efficient with help of AI. So overall, like AI can help all the stakeholders in judicial process and make it more efficient. So how do you go about building AI applications, right? So the AI applications, if you look at in this pyramid, are sitting here right at the top, right? But to reach to the top, I think you first need to have your foundations and the building blocks, which are the two layers should be framed correctly. So what are AI applications? So let's take an example, right? Let's say I'm a layman, I don't understand what is law or what are the different sections of the law, right? But something happens to me. I want to describe that in plain English. Okay, this is, let's say, my wallet got stolen or someone attacked me, right? And if a system can tell me, hey, that based on what has happened to you, this is the applicable section of the law that will give you justice, right? That is what is called as automatic charge identification, right? So think about it, like how can you build this system? To be able to build the system, first we need is data, right? That I should have some label data for me, that which tells me that okay, these are the descriptions in normal English, and these are the applicable sections. These are the laws and the sections of the law that are applicable in this scenario, right? So how do you get this data, right? It's like one way is like to make people write this, and the other way is to like look at the past judgments that are delivered by the court, and then come back and say that hey, extract certain sections from that judgment, and then say that okay, that I hide certain information from that judgment and only pick and choose certain parts, and then use that for my training. But that itself is a complex process. So let's look at one of the very typical judgments. So this is a Supreme Court judgment, and most of the court judgments are now available in public, which is a big boost. But this is itself like 242 long pages judgment. And then if you look at this, it's not very well structured. So it has paragraphs, but it is not structured in the sense like it doesn't tell me like okay, which are the facts of the cases. That is what I would need. Like someone could tell me what happened for this person. These are typically the facts of the cases. How do I extract 200 from this long judgment? The only maybe just few paragraphs that tell me what happened in this case, right? So they're not written in this way. So we need things like applications of natural language processing, which can give a structure to this whole document, saying that hey, maybe on these few pages are talking about facts, this is talking about the analysis from court, this is the past precedents, these are the other things, and finally you have a verdict from the court. So to be able to do this, we need applications of AI, especially in natural language processing, which can do this, right? And how do we go about it? Like, so those are really the AI foundations, right? The annotated data. So first thing is to have the right data. Then we have access to programming frameworks and hardware. That's not an issue. But to have the building blocks, like the thing that I was saying, right? That you have a long judgment. How do you give a structure to it? That becomes a building block, right? Using these building blocks, I can have the right data that is needed. And once I have the right data, then I can use the data to train these applications of how can you give a automatic charge identification for a given facts or the description of the case, right? Another thing to keep in mind when we talk of applications of AI is the explainability and ethical AI considerations are of utmost importance. If you look at like other applications where that may not be a mandatory thing, in justice, it really becomes very mandatory that all these considerations are of paramount importance, right? So in OpenAI, what we are doing is we are really building the foundations and the building blocks. And then once we have few things in place, we'll move on to building some of these applications. And this is a long road, but yeah, we are moving up the pyramid. So that's what we are currently doing. So how do we go about designing a mission for this? So for that, we have three main pillars of OpenAI. One is technology leadership. The other one is the collaborators, having right collaborators with us. And the third one is to make this a open data movement. So technology leadership is very important. That's what we, the primary responsibility of ThoughtWorks is in this whole mission. So using the right cutting edge technology to build state of art applications is something that is of very important, because what we have seen is the challenges posed by this problem are very challenging, and it really needs the state of art techniques to solve some of them. On having the right collaborators, it's very important to have the legal experts, technologists, and also the academic community, researchers, policymakers together working in this to make this successful. And also the most important thing is the judicial aspect or the judiciary. it's also important to get their buy-in so that once these applications become mature, judiciary can start using this formally. So that is an important aspect of building the right set of collaborators while we are developing this. And we want to make this an open data movement, in the sense whatever we are building, may it be the data, may it be the models, and we are planning to build benchmarks around it, we'll make it all open and very transparent so that people can use it and build something on top of it. So we want to make this an open data movement for OpenAI. So these are the three pillars of OpenAI. Coming to the mission architecture, it's not technology architecture, this is the mission architecture. So there are three main layers, as you can see. We'll start with the bottom, is the enabling infrastructure. What enables really OpenAI? So the main thing is the collaborator community, as we discussed, then the students community, and the tools that are needed for the data annotation process. Those are really the important enabling infrastructures. Then going to how do we engage multiple stakeholders. So for that, we have learning circles in which the technologists come together and discuss about what has been building and what they want to discuss, and also involve legal experts to get their advice. So doing MOOCs and hackathons, wherein we educate students and interested people so that they can learn how AI can be used in legal industry, and then also in that process use that knowledge to do some data annotation process. And once these two are done, then these are the initiatives that we are currently working on, which is really creation of the open data sets, which is the need of the hour for Indian legal data sets, and also Indian legal NLP benchmarks, which we'll talk in more detail. And while doing all this, we are keeping the explainable and the ethical models at the heart of everything that we are doing while building the AI. So that's really the mission architecture of this. So how did this start, and where we are currently in this whole journey? So it all started with our team writing a white paper about how can we build natural language processing benchmarks, and how do we translate the right legal task into the right technical task, right? So that's how we started. Then we made this more broader, in the sense like we quickly realized that as a technologist, we won't be able to do it again. So we need to have the right set of people on board with us. So we formed OpenAI, which tries aimed at a broader mission. Then we got a feedback from multiple people from IITs, NIFTFP, CPR, and also academic institutions. And then we came with a prioritization of like which benchmarks do we want to build, considering multiple things like how complex that task is, what is the application of that, how much time would it need. Considering all these things, we came up with a prioritized list of, hey, we want to start with this benchmark, then go to the next one. And then we are currently in the process of doing the data annotation by students from 11 universities, which are currently doing this exercise. We'll talk in more detail about that. And we are also doing the learning circles, as talking about, which invites a lot of people together to share the learning, because it's very important that the knowledge that we are creating don't remain in the silo. We want to make it open by writing research papers. We want to have these conferences, talking conferences, which so that the vision and the knowledge that we are generating spreads across. So this is the journey that we have embarked so far. I will talk more about like how we want to move forward. So we made a mention of like this multiple times, the NLP benchmark. So let's try to understand slightly in more detail what are these and why are these important. So NLP benchmark really is a way to objectively evaluate a machine learning model for a given task. So you can think of it as like a competition that I host a competition. I give you, okay, this is the task, this is the data, and give you some evaluation metrics. And then on that, as a participant, you'll build a ML model, machine learning model, to solve that task, and then submit it back, and I can evaluate that and give you a score, which is shown in form of a leaderboard. So you can think of NLP benchmark in that form of a competition. But why is this important? So this is important because we have seen NLP benchmark act as a catalyst for innovation, in the sense that they attract ML community to solve a given problem. So if you want people to solve your problem, one way to do it is like really create a challenging benchmark, so that there is a research incentive for the researchers to solve that problem. They will go ahead and write papers about it. They will, most importantly, they will open source the solution that they have given. and then people can take that and then build on top of it, right? Also, like if I'm an entrepreneur, let's say I'm in legal tech, I develop a product, right? If I want to prove how good or bad my product is, currently there is no way. But with these benchmark, I can say that, hey, that I compete on this benchmark, this is my ranking, and see, this is the jump that you get in performance, and that's why I'm able to prove ROI on my tool. So that's for the this. Uh, Also, like if you look at, like, there are a lot of models that are currently available in general English, but the legal text or the language that is used by Indian legal process is significantly different. The keywords that they kind of use, the kind of meaning of the word that is used in these contexts is significantly different than what is used in general English text, like the news articles or Wikipedia articles. It's significantly different. So if you want to build something that works well in the context of the legal text, you need to use that data and then do all the pre-training thing and building your model on that. And once you do that, then your applications becomes more effective. So, and people are not able to do that because there is not enough data that is currently available. So with these benchmarks, we hope that we can provide the data so that all these foundational blocks are there in place, and people can play around with that and really build useful applications out of this. So that really is the thought process behind this. uh, so just to give you a diagrammatically how would it work, so let's say uh, it starts with, first of all, like with the annotation process, which is the label data generation tool. So for example, the example that we took earlier, right? Automatic charge identification. So you have a text description in plain English, and then you have, okay, IPC 302. So the applicable law of that corresponding to that. So you'll have lots of such descriptions and lots of such tags available. And once that data is available, then some of it will be made open for training. Some of it will be hidden, right, for testing. And the community can use that data and train their model and submit it onto a portal. That portal will essentially accept that model, do the evaluation using this data, and automatically give you a score, which will be shown on a leaderboard. And this process, and although it may sound that why is this so important, but it has been proven historically that this, if you take any successful application of NLP, that is natural language processing, on general English text, they are coming up from these leaderboards, right? They're taking inspirations from it, what's happening here really, and that will drive the progress of AI in this space. And that's why we believe having these right benchmarks will enable driving of the right applications in this. As we were discussing earlier, we brainstormed, and then we got feedback from multiple stakeholders about which are the right benchmarks to focus on. So there are 4 areas that we have identified for the benchmark development. One is the information extraction. The other one is summary creation. Third one is case similarity, and the fourth one are the reasoning based NLP. The details of it are there in the references. You can see we have written a detailed paper, and interested people can go there and find out more. But out of these, what we did was, like, we looked at multiple factors like ease of doing data annotations, the application of it, and the tech complexity involved. And considering all of these, we have really narrowed our focus on these 4. That is the legal entities recognition, that is like law, names of the law written in text, name of the people, whether they are respondent, whether they are appellant, whether it's a name of the judge, what is the name referring to, right? So those are the legal entities. Then doing a question answering, like if you have a case text, I want to get an information, I just ask a question to the AI system, and it can give you an answer saying that, okay, this is the information that you're looking for in this particular context that you have provided as an input. Then also we saw that the Supreme Court judgment was 282 pages long, right? It's very difficult to like read all of it and then understand it and memorize it, right? So the judge, if I have a crisp summary of judgment, that really helps in finding out, okay, what are the historical right precedents that I can use. That's an important piece in legal research. And also one that thing that we'll talk in more detail is about the sentence rhetorical rule prediction, which allows me to structure my document. So these are the areas that we have currently focusing on. So let's take an example of how a benchmark could look like. And we spoke of rhetorical rules prediction. So I showed you the judgment before about from the Supreme Court, right? It's just like a bunch of text that keeps on moving. But while judge is writing that particular judgment, he has certain flow in his mind, which is not explicitly written anywhere in terms of section headers. So one of the tasks for a benchmark is to find out what is the role of a sentence that sentence is doing in all of the judgment, right? In these 282 pages, what exactly role is a sentence playing? If you can automatically predict that, it really gives me a nice structure, and I can do the right information extraction from the right sections, right? So this is a typical structure of a judgment. It starts with some facts, then if there are lower court rulings that it mentions about that, then there's some arguments, then the court starts its own views that, hey, we feel that we analyze, after analyzing all the evidence facts, we feel that this is the thing, these are the precedents that we have relied on, and considering all of it, this is the final verdict that we want to give, right? So how do we do this, right? So this is the task, right? And we understand that why is it important. It really allows me to create data for other tasks. So for example, like doing automatic charge identification, as we discussed, doing the summary. Like if I want to create a crisp summary, wouldn't it be nice to have this categorized section, and I can summarize each section separately so that the final summary structure is like really coherent, right? It also helps me to do a selective extraction from all of the longer text, right? So it really is a one of what you can say the building block that we discussed, right? Which will be used in multiple applications. So how do we go about developing this benchmark? So as we discussed, it all starts with the annotation process. So what we are currently doing is, this is one of open source data annotation tool that we have that we're currently using, and what we are asking students is, hey, look at this judgment, and then can you annotate this? So for example, from here to here it's preamble, from this line to this line it's fact, then it's ruling from lower court. So you can really, as you read on, you can just keep on doing annotations till the end, and once this data is collected, we will be able to do this thing automatically, right? That's what the process that we explain. So this is an example of how we are actually currently building this model. Okay. And how, okay, so we discussed about what happened so far, but what we want to do next. So we are currently here in the process of doing the human data annotation, right? So first thing is getting the raw data, that is the raw judgments in place, and what are the defining right evaluation metric for this task, right? Then the humans come into picture, they do some data annotations. Then once this data is finalized and we make sure that it is of right quality, we build the baseline models around it. That means, like, using the state of art techniques, we see that, okay, this is the current performance that we do. And then you build the submission portal and the leaderboard for this, and then you launch this in form of a competition. The best part is, like, while we can build the baseline model using state of art techniques, as we know that the AI speed of AI that's moving, like every day new models are coming, new techniques are coming in, right? So just depending on one person or one organization to solve this makes it inefficient. But rather, if you do a benchmarking thing, people automatically come to this to solve that, and they use state of art and say that, hey, this is doing better, try multiple things, and they are kind of solving this problem for you. So it's like working collaboratively to solve a given problem, right? So this is what we want to do. So once we'll loop over this cycle once for the rhetorical role prediction, we'll start picking on the new benchmarks and maybe work in parallelly on building those benchmarks. So okay, after hearing all this, like, how can you contribute as a person to OpenAI? So for that, I would encourage you to visit this site, which will give you the latest updates about what we are doing. There is also the white paper that we spoke about. If you're a law student or a legal expert, we always need your help in doing the data annotations and, like, understanding how AI can be used. We need your views in terms of how AI can be applied to solving most of the pressing problems, right? So there, your opinion is of immense importance. If you're a developer, you can help in building the open source annotation tool. This is one of the blog that our team member has written to how are we using the open source tools to enable the data annotation process. But there are drawbacks, and we want to improve it, and that, like, make these improvements also available to all so that people can use that. So there, as a developer, I think you can contribute. As a data scientist, we encourage you to participate. Once we complete the benchmark creation activity, we encourage you to participate in these benchmarks, and most importantly, make your model open so that others can start using and build something which on top of that. So I think all of us can play our part in this and make this mission successful. So it's a long journey, it's a marathon, but nonetheless we'll get there. That's all from my side.